The Lunara said, "Oh, working on a fantasy story where the heroine must obtain pieces of the armor of God after facing 6 internal and external trials to stop an invasion of hell. Advice on religious themes." Wow, well, that's first of all, that's really an interesting idea you've got there. I can't give you very specific advice without knowing a lot more specifics of your story. I mean, that'd be like if I was hired as your developmental editor or something like that. But just in general, you said advice on religious themes. Keep in, and this is just very general advice, right? I don't know how applicable it's going to be to you or not, but whenever you're writing religious themes, especially if you happen to be like, let's say you are a Christian and you're writing and you want to keep, you know, the values straight, when you're dealing with religious themes, realize that you don't realize that it's fiction and that you don't have to keep your fiction doesn't have to be theologically perfect, right? You're writing, and whether or not you're Christian or not, just that you can pull what you want for your story from theology. You're writing fiction. It's kind of a given that you're not writing, the theologically correct, this and that. That's how a lot of Christian fiction, for example, just goes stale and ends up being just, excuses to have a teaching lesson or whatever, but that doesn't mean you can't use religious themes, and religious themes are rampant in some of the greatest fiction out there. So, you're dealing with actual places like heaven and hell. It sounds like from your idea, actual things like the armor of God, which I guess maybe you're taking from Ephesians, like the listed, the helmet of salvation, the shield of faith, and so forth. Which is great. That's great stuff to take. So, I guess my advice would be make sure that your story world is coherent and has integrity. Don't worry so much about, um, I mean, there's a difference between not being theologically precise and being blasphemous or something like that. I mean, yeah, I'm not saying, if you are, let's say if you are a Christian and you're writing that, I mean, yeah, you don't have to go write about how actually Satan's really God. And yeah, I mean, obviously you don't have to go that far, but I'm just saying you don't have to worry about making sure everything is perfect, or whatever in terms to religious themes. Let the religious themes serve your story, and let your story, by being true to itself, get across any values organically that you might want to get across. That's just some advice on that. So this is, yeah, so I kind of sensed that you were going at it from a Christian aspect in your question. So yeah, that's wonderful. We need more, just speaking for a second as a Christian myself, as a Catholic Christian, and I know that's not going to apply to everybody listening, but just, whatever your own belief set is, whatever you have, whatever your values, whatever your ethics have, when you want to write a story and you want to be true to your ethics, to your values, to your religion in this case, or whatever, that's great. I mean, you should never deny yourself. You should never, breach your integrity with that. But you always want to make sure that you're, I'm going to say this in the right way. I don't want it to come across wrongly. Using Christianity as an example, and again, you can apply whatever your value system is to this. Your belief system should permeate everything you do. You shouldn't sit down in a chair and say, okay, I'm going to write this story as a Christian. No, write that story as a writer first. Because if you're truly a Christian or whatever your belief system is, it will be there. It'll permeate it. But that's how bad Christian movies are made, Um, they're propaganda, They're just as poorly written as a lot of the woke stuff because they're written to get a message across, not to tell a story. If the story's good, if the story's given its due, then organically it will have its own values and messages and so forth, But yeah, and I'm not saying you're doing that, Lenora. I'm just, extending my advice there.